Hi there! If you're new to my channel, my name is Kelly and I'm an American who moved to Denmark just a few years ago. And when we moved here, we actually bought a house that was 50 years old. And surprisingly enough, inside the house, a lot of things were the original. Well, we thought it was about time to change our kitchen to make it a little bit more functional and a little bit more modern. So if you'd like to see how we changed our 50-year-old kitchen in Denmark, stay tuned. Now, when we moved into our house, we really liked our kitchen. We liked how bright it was, and we liked all of it being white. We hadn't had a white kitchen like this before, and it was kind of appealing. But the longer we lived there, the more that the different parts of the kitchen started to kind of annoy us. First off, the cabinets were up so high that when I opened them, it wouldn't even touch my head because it was that high above me. Some of the walls also had tile and wood panel, and it was just kind of too many different things going on with the walls. The floor was also this spongy material, and it was kind of a cross between white and gray, and it just never really seemed like it was clean. I also really didn't like the countertops. I mean, they were original from the 1960s, and they just had to go. Our appliances seemed to be on the old side as well. And they were all white, which could have been a nice thing to kind of blend in with the rest of the kitchen, but I just really wanted stainless steel. And also the refrigerator was so small. We really couldn't fit a lot of things in there, and when we had guests over, there was just no place to put the food. We had a decent amount of countertop space, but for whatever reason, I just felt like it would be nice to have a little bit more. And then we had somewhat of an island that came out, but you couldn't really do a whole lot with it, except for just use it as countertop space. In the area that we called the breakfast nook, part of the kitchen, I really liked how we have these long windows. We actually had quite a lot of windows in the kitchen, which kind of gave it a nice bright feeling. One of the drawbacks of that breakfast nook area was this wall that we had. It was kind of a brownish, grayish wood paneling. It was just ugly, and it didn't seem like it belonged there. And not only that, but this side of the kitchen had a completely different ceiling. It was these thin strips of wood paneling, like what we had in our living room. It didn't really make a lot of sense to why it was like that. We did like the fact that we could eat breakfast in our kitchen. It was nice to have a little section separate so that way we could eat in the kitchen if we wanted to as a family. Even before we started our remodel, we actually did a few things to the kitchen to try and make it look a little bit better. First off, we got rid of that small refrigerator. And as you can see, it's very tiny because my children were bigger than the refrigerator, and they were little guys. And we had to kind of do some adjusting to that space to fit in a bigger refrigerator. So we took out the top cabinet to be able to fit a bigger refrigerator in a spot. Then we decided to take down that wood panel wall because it just had to go, and put up a white wall instead. The remaining walls in the breakfast nook area had this really old kind of wallpaper, and we wanted it gone, so it took a lot of scrubbing and cleaning to get that completely off the wall. When we moved the small refrigerator out and we put it over in our breakfast nook area, I accidentally made a small little hole in the spongy floor that we had. I hated that floor, so I wasn't really upset by it. And when I noticed that underneath there was actually wood, I thought, why in the world would anybody cover this up? So I started peeling it back, and sure enough, it was a really pretty wooden floor. But when I got close to the edge where it was actually the other part of the kitchen, I found it was black goop right towards the edge. And so I tried my best to kind of scrape that off. And I thought, well, this will be great. Then we'll have wooden floors and we won't have to worry. But when I got to that edge, that little doorway in between the two rooms, that's when I noticed that the other side of the kitchen was not wood, but in fact concrete. So we tore up the one side and left the spongy crap on the other side. So one day in October of 2019, we decided today was the day and we were going to start our demolition. We decided to go ahead and take off all of the white paneling that was around the kitchen and all of the white tile that we had. And that was mostly in the area above the dishwasher and over above the stove. We also had some above and around doorways, which was a very odd placement, but that was next. Then we went around and found more tile and more panel and just started taking it off. And that was, of course, in very weird places like around windows and above the sink. We also took down all of those top cabinets that were above the sink. And we did a bit of spackling to all those areas where the tile and the wood paneling were, and we painted. The next step was to get a new ceiling. We had two different types of ceilings in our kitchen, and this time we were going to have one complete ceiling that looked exactly the same on both sides. I can't tell you how good it felt just to have the same ceiling on both sides of the room, and it made it so much brighter than it was before by having both of them be white. Then we started our focus in the breakfast nook area, and we took the radiator off the wall and we actually took the wall down. This also meant taking the windowsill out as well. We knew that the house didn't have a lot of insulation, so we wanted to make sure that we were going to be insulating the walls from the front of the house. Now, I should tell you that we did not do all of the work ourselves. We did hire professionals to help with some of the more technical things and the things that in Denmark you're really supposed to be having a professional do. But we were pretty good at demolition. If you can remember that there was a section that we had that divided our breakfast nook area from our kitchen, well, that had some shelves at the top. We went ahead and took those down, and we also had a countertop and some cabinets there on the bottom part, and we went ahead and took those off as well. And all that was left was kind of like this small little wall. We left that on because there was a small radiator on the other side, which you can't see in this picture. Because the radiator was on this side of the wall, there's also some tubing that went into it because it was tubing to the radiator. So we needed to be very careful with this section when we were doing our demo. At this point, we still had not started to do the insulation on the wall yet. We were going to wait on that. So we thought we would go ahead and start tearing up the wood floor. We knew we were going to be putting tile down and we weren't going to be using this floor anymore. And besides, we had to take it up so that way we could insulate it and also put in the floor heating. So here is a picture of our floor once we had everything taken up. With that, we had the insulation, which is actually really big pieces of styrofoam. And then there is this wired cover for it, this little fence looking type thing. The professionals came out and did the floor heating, and then we also got a new radiator put in, and we put it on the side wall instead of the front wall. It's also a smaller size. Once that was in and ready to go, we decided to take out the rest of that small wall and actually take out the other part that was kind of protruding from the wall all the way back to the main wall. So we had some concrete poured so that way we could create a new space here and then put the tile above that. This took a bit of time to dry, so we really weren't doing a whole lot while we were waiting on that. But once we were able to walk on the floor again, we were able to start doing the insulation. So you can see that here above the window. We started creating new frames and insulating it with, again, these big pieces of styrofoam. We actually did that all the way through from the left to the right of the kitchen on the top of the windows. Once the tops were done, then we started to insulate the bottom, again building the frame and putting the styrofoam in. Of course, you see some tubing that went through here, and this was for our electric, and of course we had to work with an electrician with all of this type of stuff, but that was generally a pretty quick process. Right after we worked on the insulation of the breakfast nook area, this is when we decided to take out our pantry cabinet. And this was a tall cabinet that went from pretty much the bottom all the way up to the top, and this is where we kept most of our food and a lot of other things that we were using, like plates and dishes and things like that. We took that out to try and make sure that the wall was nice looking. We were not putting a cabinet quite like that in this space, so we needed to make sure that the walls were nice and plastered and also that they were painted. We did only one part of the floor with tile in the beginning because we were still using the other part of the kitchen. We made sure that we did our floor in stages. But of course, it came to be the time when we would have to take out our sink and our cabinets. We would still have our refrigerator and our dishwasher, but we would not have our sink anymore. So we took all of that out so we could actually start to do the insulation on the wall behind the sink and underneath the windows. That was the last part. We also were planning on moving our dishwasher from the right hand side over by the refrigerator over to where the sink is. So that was something that we were working with the plumber and the electrician to be able to make that space underneath the windows available for our dishwasher. Once we did the insulation for the part underneath the windows where we had our sink, then we had the rest of the floor put in. So now we had a completely empty kitchen. All of our appliances had been moved over to the breakfast nook area, and they were just sitting there and waiting for the cabinets from the kitchen store to arrive. Already it's looking very nice, and we actually did this about a week or so before the cabinets came, and then there was a few days in between them actually arriving and then someone installing them. And the person who came to install the cabinets came from the kitchen store, and it took him a couple days fully to install the cabinets. I actually made a video when our kitchen had arrived to our house and was just sitting in this space, and I had mentioned how things were going a little crazy. I will put a link to that in the description. So of course, when the technician left after the first day, our kitchen was not able to be moved into yet, but here are some pictures of the progress. He had his stuff here, so I couldn't even get in any of the drawers. There were no handles yet after the first day, and not all of our countertop was actually put on. So there were a lot of things that weren't done, but a lot of things that were done. Here is a picture of when the technician left. We still have some cosmetic things to deal with. As you can see, there is a light bulb hanging from the ceiling in the middle of the picture because we didn't have any lights at that point. Now let me take you on a little walk through my kitchen. This is after the technician left on the last day, and as you can see, we're moving back into our kitchen, so this is not how it normally looks. But you can see the dishwasher is in the right place and the faucet is on the sink. There's also the exhaust above the stove. We don't have doors yet. Those, it says it would take a couple more months to get, which is quite crazy, but we ran into Corona time, so that's just how it is. They put some sealers along the edges. We have a pantry drawer now instead of a pantry cabinet, which actually works out really well. And the pantry we use for some bigger items because all of the drawers pull out. We also use it for storage of some extra things or things that we don't use very often. And I really like that we have now drawers next to the dishwasher for the plates and the bowls and the cups because our boys are the ones who help out with that. I also love these big drawers for the silverware and all of the utensils so they can all be right there next to each other. So I know I just showed you a little walkthrough of my kitchen, but I wanted to show you a little bit of extra things that we did since that video, since we moved into our kitchen. For starters, we had that kitchen completely done in March, but as we had shown in the video, they did not have some things, and some of those things were actually these doors. These doors actually just came in the very last week of May, so it took a couple of extra months for that. I'm not sure if that was a Corona type of thing or if that's just how it went because they were on back order, but we are so glad to have the doors put on our cabinet now, and we use it really, it's my tea cabinet. We added some floorboards, some trim up on the ceiling. We put our curtains back in the windows, and we added chairs to our breakfast nook area. This little area turned out really well because we, again, wanted to have a space where we could have snacks, where we could eat breakfast, and it worked out really well. The boys, they do their homework here, so I have their homework ready to go for when they come home from school. It's where they get their snack and we talk about their day. It's also additional countertop space if we need it. So we're able to eat our breakfasts in here and snacks and things like that. I'm really glad that we were able to keep that. And we still have to find lights. The problem now is that the weather is getting nicer in Denmark. So when the sun is shining, we want to be out. We don't want to be inside. So it might take us a little bit longer to find the lights that we want. I'll keep you updated on that on my social media. So if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, you should be able to get those updates for whenever it is that we actually find lights to go in our kitchen. We also remodeled a bathroom when we first moved to Denmark. That we actually had someone do the entire thing. We didn't do anything with that. But I wrote about it on my blog. So if you'd like to see the before and after of my bathroom, go ahead and check out my blog. I'll put a link to that in the description so you can see just how we changed a powder blue bathroom from the 1960s to a very modern bathroom of the present day. Thanks for coming along in this video. What do you think about my new kitchen? Let me know in the comments. Are you working on a remodeling project in your home? Let me know about it in the comments. I hope to see you in another video, and as always, take care.